think we're live. We'll do it live. Well, it's Sunday, March the 8th, 2026, 1000 hours on the East Coast of America. This is Coffee with Frankie. This is the coffee. I'm the Frankie. And as we sit here today, it is Free Agent Frenzy Eve. So, starting tomorrow, we should get some incredible news about free agents changing teams, switching around. Who are the Jets getting? But as of now, as of this morning, we have no real news at all from the Jets. So we might get some while we're live on the air today. Who knows? We'll keep our eye on the wires, otherwise known as X.com. But otherwise, we'll have to read the tea leaves. And the good news is, the really, really good news is that I, Frankie, have figured out what the hell the Jets are doing at quarterback. You heard me right. I figured it out. I sussed it out. I thought about it long and hard. What is going on? It didn't make sense at first. If you remember on Friday, I was confused. I didn't understand it. It was confusing. But now the light has gone off. Ding. And I have come up with a theory about what in the hell the Jets are going to do with this quarterback position, and it's good news. So, good morning. Hello. Duncan Lloyd is here, the Dunkmeister. If your name is Duncan Lloyd, do you drink your coffee from Duncan? I think you got to. It might be the law that if your name is Duncan, you got to go to Duncan when you get your coffee. Phil the Jet Adams is here. He's all the way from England. He's probably having some nice tea and perhaps some bangers and mash on the telly. Hi, Karate is here. The Meadowlands Swamp Thing is here, and he's a member of the Inner Circle, and you might want to be a member of the Inner Circle because the members of the Inner Circle for $2 a month get exclusive information, exclusive items, exclusive Frankie thoughts, exclusive bright ideas, exclusive prospect rankings, quarterback rankings, you name it. They get everything for $2 a month. And look, you can hang out with people like the Meadowlands Swamp Thing. I mean, who doesn't want to hang out with a Swamp Thing? Look, there's not too many Swamp Things around. So this way you could say you were the one who hung out with a Swamp Thing. But that's only if you're in the Inner Circle. That's the only way that could happen. Phil says, I've reduced my rant level. I don't think so, Phil. No. I think the rants are always possible. But if you notice, I try not to rant in a negative way about the Jets. That's all too common, right? Everybody does that. That's the Joe Bading-Dong theory of media domination. Just when the Jets are bad, you just rant and rave, excuse me, about how bad the Jets are and how bad Woody is and sell the team, Woody, and all this nonsense. So when there's ranting going on FSPN, it's usually in a much more enlightened place than the Joe Bading-Dong theory of media domination, where you just rant and rave about stupid things like Woody and selling the team and, oh my God, they really can't stop the run, this stupid defense, and blah, blah, blah. All right, we try to avoid that kind of ranting, but ranting on other topics is always appreciated and, sometimes enlightening. Now, the other thing to keep in mind as of this morning, Nothing at all um, coming from Zach the Hack Rosenblatt or Country Club Connor Hughes. Those people are not tweeting at all this morning so far whatsoever. Only one tweeting is Dick Chimney. So what does that mean? Not exactly sure, but could just mean nothing nothing happening on the at One Jets Drive as of now, or at least nothing leaking out. So we'll just have to see about that. Howie's here. Always good to see Howie. Superfan is here. Phil said he had coffee and a bagel. I thought over in England you weren't allowed to have coffee. It had to be tea. England is much more of a tea-consuming country than America, I believe. America is more known for its coffee. Best $2 I've ever spent. So there you go. Swamp Thing says, hey, $2 a month, you get tons of shit. Plus, you get to hang out with people like Chris Bradigan, Harry W. I mean, what could be better? Hang out with a Swamp Thing? Mr. Net Warrior, so moving up in the world with a sponsor? No. Where's Bialy? If Bialy was here, he would tell you this right here is a joke. See? A lot of you people don't have a good sense of humor. And a lot of you people don't understand who Bill Hicks was. And you should go back and go on YouTube and look up Bill Hicks and all of his bits and laugh your fucking asses off because one of the funnier people in the history of the world and died way too soon. But this is not a real sponsor. That's a joke, Mr. Net Warrior. You think there's really something called orange drink? There probably is something called orange drink. Joe Mike is here. Carson Wentz. What in Carson Wentz is going on in here? Yeah, I got a theory. We're just waiting for some people to show up. Right now I see about 20, according to my doc. That's a little low. You guys need to tell your friends to hang out with old Frankie on Sunday mornings. We only got 20 people in here. Come on. There's so much good information I'm about to give you guys. I'm about to change your lives. And we got 20 people in here. You guys really need to tell your friends because I'm about to blow your minds. What could that mean? I don't know. I'm gonna explain Carson Wentz. I'm gonna explain it all. Save the negative rants for the media. Yeah, exactly. Right. The media who deserve it, right? And when they're good, I go on a good rant with them. When they do the right thing, I tell you about that too. It's not all negative with the media. Some media do a good job, and we tell you who those people are, and we give them their flowers. Jeremy Fowler is reporting that the Colts are going to go down to the wire with Alec Pierce, whose market is trending up. There's a number of teams, of course, who want Alec Pierce. He's going to be out of our range and market, but the Colts are apparently trying to re-sign him. The Eagles are going to be busy. They just re-signed one of their big defensive tackles. They might or might not trade A.J. Brown. Commanders set to be active, says Fowler. There was a trade yesterday, in case you missed it. The Packers traded one of their defensive tackles to the Colts, and the Colts traded them linebacker Zaire Franklin. So Mr. Franklin is now with the Packers, and in return they got a good run-stuffing defensive tackle. Jeremy Fowler is reporting this morning that Romeo Doubs is set to hit the market. Talks with Green Bay did not result in a deal. He will have several suitors, and hopefully we're one of them, although he seems to be a hot name, so perhaps might be priced out of our range. Adam Schefter is reporting that Tennessee, the Titans, have been linked to the Giants free agent wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson. There is mutual interest, but Robinson will have other suitors. So some of the people like Wan'Dale Robinson and Romeo Dobbs that I was hoping might come to the Jets, not looking so hot as far as that is concerned right now. Anyways, Siler Snoop Huntley is going back to the Baltimore Craven Ravens, who of course made the big trade for Max Crosby. The Max Crosby trade really has no impact on the Jets other than the Raiders will now be picking a couple of picks ahead of us with that 16th pick. So not the Ravens anymore. So whatever that means, I mean, they'll probably take a wide receiver there if I had to guess because they want to, help out their young quarterback that they're going to get with the first overall pick as much as possible. So that would make sense. Or offensive line, but perhaps not as many good offensive linemen as you might like in this draft. Khalil Mack, like the Mack truck that he is, got a 1-year, $18 million deal to return back to the Chargers. So that was big news. Vikings are retaining TJ Hawkinson. So if anybody thought TJ Hawk was going to come on the market, you're wrong. He's going back to the Vikings. Eddie Dinero Pinheiro signed a contract with the 49ers extension. We could have had Dinero, but instead we decided we had to have Greg the Leg, and we let Dinero go, and now he's got a nice little deal. 4-year, $17 million, only $10 guaranteed. So not a lot of money for Dinero Pinheiro, but still a nice deal for him, and we could have just kept him. But Greg the Leg had leg talent, so we could not keep him because of leg talent. And where's Greg the Leg now? Retired. Colby Wooden was the defensive tackle going back to the Colts. So those were the major recent deals here. There was a false report that Rashawn Gary was being cut. Now we have another situation. So the Packers, according to Adam Schefter, the Packers and offensive tackle Sean Ryan reached agreement on a 3-year, $33 million extension. So that's a pretty cheap deal for a tackle. With a max value of $39 million, deal contains $11 million signing bonus, prevents Ryan from hitting the free agent market. So if you wanted Sean Ryan on your team, not going to happen. He's staying with the Packers. Hopefully we get some news today that the Jets retain some of their people. I'd like to see some contracts signed today. But we'll have to see as we roll on this program. There should be news trickling in about perhaps some trades, perhaps some signings. We'll have to see what the hell is going on. Yeah. Sponsored by viewers like you, and really sponsored by the people in the inner circle. Let's be honest. Yes, there are advertisements now on this channel, but they bring in pennies on the dollar. The real heroes are the people who subscribe to the channel. Let's be honest. Even $2 a month goes a long way because you know that that's coming in. So the real MVPs, people in the inner circle, the inner triangle, the inner rectangle, we got it all over there. Rover Bet, thoughts on trading before the draft for pick 7? Who's picking pick 7? Why are they going to trade back? Let's bring up Tankathon so we can always have it here and take a look at this order. So pick 7 is Washington. Why would Washington want to trade out? The thing about this draft is there's not a lot of like elite blue chip talent. There's a lot of good talent in the draft. But if you want a blue chipper, which the Commanders should want, one way or another, they could go for Jeremiah Love. They could go for any one of the defenders. They could, you're going to have to take them within the first 15 picks or so, probably the first 10 picks. So I don't know. It depends on what these teams are able to get done on free agency as well, how many holes they're able to fill. But trading up is generally a bad idea, as we all know, based on the Loser's Curse paper that was done, exploring all the drafts going all the way back. You generally want to trade back and not trade up. Generally speaking. Not always. Generally speaking. They say Jesus only had 12 followers at the start, but the word got out. Yeah. Well, I'm not Jesus, Phil. I mean, I'm good, but I'm not Jesus. I mean, yeah, and hit the like button. Please do hit the like button. That still does help. Jojo says, why do I have a feeling this will be underwhelming? Well, it depends on what your expectations are. If you're expecting us to go gangbusters and get Alec Pierce and a lot of these top free agents, you're going to be disappointed. We're not going to do that. Washington doesn't have a second rounder. All right, so what? I don't think they're going to. Well, first of all, it depends on what they get done in free agency. They're talking about Washington being big spenders in free agency. And then I think they're going to want to take a blue chip prospect at 7. And who are we trading up for? Taking Love is probably a bad idea too. Well, it depends. If you really, really need a running back, he's awesome. So if we're signing Wentz and Geno, better be drafting Simpson. Okay, so let's get into this. Is a perfect lead-in. Thank you, JoJo. JoJo got right into it. Here's the deal. Here's what I've figured out. Because if you remember on Friday, I couldn't figure out what in the hell we were doing. Why aren't we going after the top guys? There seems to be no interest in Carr or Cousins or even Willis or Mariota, who are my top 4 available people that you can realistically get. And so because from all the reporting that was being done, seemed to be no interest from the Jets on any of those guys at all. So we'll have to see what happens. But if this holds, and the reporting was that we're going to go after Wentz because of Reich's familiarity, and we might go after Geno too because that's another veteran that you could get for the minimum because the Raiders are still going to be paying him. Now, why would that make sense? So I was banging my head against the table going, why does this make sense? I don't understand why we would do this. But then I realized something. What if the Jets graded both Simpson and Aller a lot higher than consensus? So the consensus is that Simpson's like in the 30s. I mean, PFF had him in like the 40s, ranking him on a big board. But what if the Jets had both of those guys in their scouting evaluation ranked and rated a lot higher than consensus? Then this strategy of going for 2 veterans that are El Cheapo. So this is the strategy that I call 2 bums and a baby. So this is the 2 bums and a baby theory by old Frankie. 2 bums and a baby. So let's get 2 bums in here, veterans, on the cheap. So Geno fits the bill because he's already being paid by the Raiders, so he's going to get $2 million, $2 million from us. Okay. And then Wentz, same thing. He's only going to cost $2-3 million. So you get 2 veteran quarterbacks on the cheap. Now, their role in this is to install Reich's offense. That's their entire purpose. It's not that they're going to be our quarterbacks. It's not that we believe in them. They're just here as veteran placeholders to get the fucking offense installed. Nobody is talking about that we have to install a whole new offense. So the offensive line, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, A.D. Mitchell, all the people, they got to learn a whole new offense now. And so to have a quarterback, a veteran quarterback, on a cheap deal, and if you can, 2 of them, just in case one gets hurt, then that makes a lot of sense for the installation of the offense, and you have them there to take the pressure off of the draft pick that you're going to use. This is basically the same strategy the Giants and the Saints used last year, and it worked. So you put the veteran there. Now the rookie can sit back and learn, and whenever they're ready, they're going to come in. but they don't have to start the year that way. You're not a week one starter. There's not all that pressure on you. You have these veterans there as a placeholder as we get the offense on the track and moving forward. Then you take with pick 16 whichever one is there. So if Simpson's there, you take him. He's probably the next one. But if he gets taken by the Dolphins or somebody else, then you go ahead and take Aller. Is it a reach? Yes. Yeah. But if you believe in them, you just take them there. You don't even play around and wait till 33 because you never know what's going to happen. So if you really have them graded that high, you just have it because it's very unlikely that both of them are gone at 16. So you take whichever one's there. If Simpson's there, you take him. If he's not there, you take Aller. Okay. And then they're going to sit on the bench. Just like Jackson Dart, just like Tyler Shuck, they're on the bench. Just like Jared Goff when he was taken first overall, on the bench, a la banca. And they sit and they learn and they develop, and you work very hard to develop them. They're going to get reps in practice. They're going to get scout team reps. They're going to play in the preseason, whichever one it is, and you're going to see how they develop. And at some point during this season, you pull the plug on the two bums, or whichever bum is starting for us, and you bring in the baby, the rookie. And you hope and pray that they play at least as well as Dart and Shuck did last year for their teams, to where they now believe they have their quarterbacks. Whether they're right or not, we'll see. But the Saints and Giants both believe they have their quarterbacks now. And what did we hear all offseason? Well, now that the Giants have their quarterback, it's a premier destination for this, that, and the other. And same thing with the Saints. Now that the Saints know their quarterback situation settled, they can go after this one, that one, and really take it to the next level. And that's what we're hoping for as well. Because let's say it's Simpson, and let's say he comes in game 8, and then he plays well enough where everybody's like, wow, okay, he's the guy. Regardless of how many wins we get, just like the Giants with Dart, they think he's the guy. Hopefully Simpson or Aller, but hopefully Simpson plays that well. And then the Jets next offseason have the quarterback in place. Nobody's getting fired because hopefully we win 7, 8, some representative number of games to where nobody gets fired. We have an offense installed with Reich and the Stanford Smarty Pantses. And we have the quarterback, or at least we think we do. And that means next offseason, we go in with $150 million under the cap. All that dead cap rolls right the fuck off. 150 in cap space, 3 first-round picks, and no need for a quarterback. Boom! That's it. 2 bums and a baby. That's the theory. Yeah. So it's going to be called a reach, Swamp Thing. But you got to make sure you get them if you have them rated that high. And so I think some people do. So that's the theory. 2 bums and a baby. We basically mimic what the Giants and Saints did last year. You go with the veteran for as long as you need to, and then when the rookie's ready, they come right in, and hopefully they show you enough where it's like, okay, we got them, and then you're good to go. You're good to go. So that's the theory. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know what you think of it in the chat. 2 bums and a baby. That's my new theory. It's the only way that this thing makes sense. They got to be so high on Simpson and Aller that they're going to do that strategy. It just can't be that they're going to really think that Geno and Carson Wentz are really the answer. They're just placeholders. You guys are being quiet in the chat now. It was such a great theory that it blew your minds. Or did something happen? Joe Mike says, I don't think taking 16 is the best, but I get it. Plus, like you said, the Raiders may take a wide receiver. We can still get safety at 33. Right. Look at it. It's going to be a reach, Joe Mike. I understand that. Everybody's going to say, ha, ha, they reached for Simpson or they reached for Aller, especially if it has to be that. But I understand that. But I don't give a shit. If you really believe in the quarterback, you take him. You don't risk somebody in the back half of the first round taking your guy. And think of it this way. We have a bonus first round pick. Look at it that way. We're still getting Arvel reset too. That's amazing. Vels bells. We could go into that for a second if you want, but um, so we still get a blue chip premium player there, and at 16 we take our shot at quarterback. Is it a stretch and a reach? Yeah, probably. If you had your druthers, you would rather get those guys in the second round or whatever. But you can't risk it, in my opinion. If you really believe in them, and that's the whole key to this whole thing. I'm assuming, and the other beautiful thing is you're not then spending resources on quarterback. So here's the other benefit of it. The two bums, Geno and Wentz, are going to cost you a combination of $5-6 million for both of them as a combo. And then, the 16th pick is going to cost whatever it costs, 10, 11, 12 for this year. I don't know what the 16th pick is. But that's not a lot of allocation of money for the quarterback position, which means you can then get aggressive with guys you want to get aggressive for. I think we're going to get aggressive for AVT and a linebacker and a safety. You can get a little more aggressive. Maybe you can go get a Brian Cook or a Kwani Brisker at safety where you couldn't before because you're willing to allocate a few million more because you don't have to spend a lot on quarterback, which we would have in my original plan, which was the Carr, Cousins, Willis, Mariota plan. Those guys coming in as a starter are going to want 10, 11, 12. Carr would want 35, so, or at least 30. Cousins would want at least 20. So, but now you're not doing that. So now you can be aggressive with AVT. Maybe this allows us to retain AVT. Because if you put AVT and he stays healthy on this line, you could have an elite line. And how great would that be? You may be able to go for Kwani Brisker or Brian Cook. Those are some of the top safeties. I thought we would have to go for Nick Cross or somebody like that. Maybe you can go for the top of the market there. Maybe you can use some of the money to convince Anzalone not to go to the Chicago Bears with Dennis Allen, but instead come with Ole AG. But to do that, you got to give him a few extra million. All right, maybe an extra year or two or something to convince him because there's going to be a few targeted free agents that we really, really want. I've heard multiple reporters talking about that the Jets are sniffing around at the top of the safety market. All right, well, you need money for that. So this is a way to save money, get the offense installed, and then have the rookie that you hope and pray, becomes the franchise guy. And it only works if you've rated and graded those guys so high that you feel very comfortable taking them at 16. And I understand the criticism is going to be that's way too high to take them. I get it. I know. I don't care. I don't care. Because it's a bonus pick anyway. It's not like we're utilizing our only first-round pick on it. We still get Arvel Reese too. And it allows us to populate the defense and hopefully the offensive line, with higher talent than we would otherwise be able to do if we were spending a lot of money on the quarterback position. So it works on a lot of levels, and it's the only way I can make sense of the approach the Jets are apparently taking. And we'll find out more today and next week if I'm right. But I think the two bums and a baby theory could really work. It worked for the Giants last year, worked for the Saints. I mean, a lot of people laughed at the Giants for making Jackson Dart a first-round pick last year. A lot of people laughed at them for that. They think it worked out great. A lot of people laughed at the Saints for taking Tyler Shuck with whatever pick it was, number 40, I think. A lot of people said, what? Tyler Shuck? He stinks. Well, look how good he's doing now. So I think the teams are often grading players a lot differently than the consensus. And in this, for this situation, I think the Jets have Simpson and Aller rated very high. That's the only way to make sense of this. Galati says, I'm stuck. Well, hopefully you're not physically stuck. Yeah, well, you can't risk it, Warrior. This is what I think. I'd love to do it at 33, too. Don't get me wrong. But I just don't think you can take that risk. I think when they're there, you got to take them. I mean, it's too scary. If you really believe in them, you just take them at 16 and just keep moving on. Yeah, so 27 is the other part of this draft, Duncan. The other part of this theory is the 27 draft that everybody thinks is going to be chock full of talent for quarterbacks really is not. Well, put it this way, really could be more disappointing. Remember, this time last year, everybody said the 26th draft was going to be loaded with quarterback talent. How'd that work out? And every one of the top quarterbacks that's supposed to be a top quarterback next year, I could give you a pessimistic case for each and every one of them, and some of them more than others. You might wind up with two quarterbacks that are first round worthy next year. And then what do you do if you don't have one of the top two picks? You're fucked. So if you grade these guys out high enough, go ahead and take them. And then next year you have three picks. We could wind up with, let's go to the, wait a minute. If we don't need a quarterback next year, which is part of the beauty of this theory, we could wind up next year, let's just click this, with Jeremiah Smith, the wide receiver out of Ohio State, Dylan Stewart, the edge out of South Carolina, and, like Amari Washington, the defensive lineman from Oregon, who's incredible. We could wind up with three incredible players just because we were smart enough to know, in theory anyway at this point, that, say, Simpson could be a franchise quarterback and that we could get him at 16 instead of saying, we should wait for Arch Manning. Arch Manning threw 61% completion this year. That's terrible for college. Completion percentage isn't the only way to grade a quarterback, but just as a one data point, 61% in college is horrible. And everybody knows how talented Arch Manning is, but he's going to have to play a lot better than that. And who knows if he will. And Texas is loaded with talent. There's no reason why he shouldn't, really, but it's no guarantee. And even if he is the first overall pick, there's no guarantee we're going to get the first overall pick. So to me, this strategy makes a lot of sense in many different ways. It's so crazy. It's just crazy enough to work. Yeah, this is what I think, JoJo. Like, you can't just assume they're going to make it there just because of, the PFF mock draft. It's like that PFF mock draft thing is way off. You can get people, you could get people in like the 6th, 7th round that are just never, ever making it there. They're just not. So then people think like, oh, that's too high. But, well, that's the thing, Phil. Like, this is also a great way to temper your expectations. Like, if it's Geno and Wentz, say, then like I said, they're just placeholders. They're not the answer. I don't care what they do. As long as they get the offense, installed and going to some degree, and you figure they're veterans, we will have a decent offensive line. They should be able to at least be functional to some degree. But I don't care. I'm just all eyes on the rookie because the whole plan is about that rookie and just when is the right time to put them in so that they're ready to go. They feel mentally comfortable and we don't sabotage them like we did with Darnold and Wilson and all. So it's like, yeah, the first quarter of the year, it's like it doesn't matter. Just watch the reports from the beat reporters about how the Jets are feeling about the baby, the rookie. So that's the good thing about it. You don't have to get depressed when they're throwing picks. You can just be like, well, they're just placeholders anyway. Yeah, JD Surf City, exactly right. Who cares where these people have them ranked? If you do your scouting and you love them, take them. And I think what this is telling us, the fact that they're not pursuing Derek Carr, tells me they love Simpson, probably both Simpson and Aller. And I think they also love Mendoza, but can't get him. So So I think that's what it's telling me because it makes no sense otherwise. This idea that people have, just wait till 27. There's no guarantee that 27 is going to be a bumper crop. No guarantee whatsoever. 26 was supposed to be a bumper crop. How'd that work out? So I think this is the way to do it. And it also gives the coaching staff some breathing room with Woody. You could say, look, Woody, I understand. Like, let's say the first 4 games were 1-3. Okay, that's not good. But in game 5 or game 6, the rookies, they're planning on bringing in the rookie. Then you could be like, all right, Woody, look, okay, it's not going great so far. We understand. But these 2 bums that we signed, they were just cheap placeholders. No problem. We're bringing in the rookie. The rookie's ready now. Okay. And then the rookie comes in, and we just have to hope he shows enough promise to be the franchise guy. And then however many games we win. But the idea being we go into the 27 offseason knowing we have our quarterback. That's the optimistic case that we have to be going for. And that's going to allow us to get players. Imagine if we added Jeremiah Smith. I don't know if you know how good these players are. I don't know how many of you follow college football, but Jeremiah Smith is the best wide receiver in the country. Dylan Stewart is the best edge player in the country, or maybe it's Colin Simmons. I'm looking at the NFL mock draft database right now. Colin Simmons, Dylan Stewart. Dylan Stewart I haven't seen Colin Simmons play much, but Dylan Stewart is an absolute monster. He could have come out this year and been a first-round pick easy. Now he's going to put another year in at college. He's going to be an absolute monster. We could get him also, all in the first round, and we could get Amari Washington, a very disruptive defensive tackle, all in the first round. I mean, come on. We got to be a playoff team then, don't we? At some point. Joe Mike, Dart hits for Giants, Sanders hits for Cleveland. Why can't? Yeah, exactly the point. Plus, Simpson has come out and said he was playing hurt last season and lost weight. Combine back at Tula. So it doesn't matter what he said, Joe. He was playing hurt. This is the other thing I didn't even mention. So I've gotten information. FSPN has gotten information that Simpson's back issue. He was not only hurt, he had a back issue. Try playing quarterback with an injured back. This happened against Oklahoma. Now, we were as Inner Circle members know, we were watching the college season last year very closely, and I was grading all the main quarterbacks, including Simpson, because he was off to such a great start. And something happened, and at the time it was somewhat mysterious. College, they're not as transparent about injuries as the pros. To him in the Oklahoma game, and then his play went down the toilet from where it was. Still was okay-ish, but not. He was at an elite level, and then all of a sudden it went down. So then we found out he was dealing with a back injury, and the question was: is this a degenerative thing? Is it gonna be a career-altering situation? But the information I have says that he's fully healthy now. The back injury is not considered to be degenerative or long-lasting. It's basically just something that happened, and he's going to be fully healthy going forward. And he also had a GI. Then we learned he also had a GI, an intestinal tract issue where he couldn't eat. And that's also apparently healed. So this kid apparently just had some of the worst luck of all time in the second half of his season, where he had multiple injuries and multiple problems. And also Alabama wasn't that great. And they still won a playoff game in the CFP, you'll notice. But that's apparently what it is. And so hopefully, and that's why I think if that's true, then the Jets are just writing off the kid's second half of the season, and they're just scouting off the first half. Now, the scary part there is that's not a lot of games that he has played. He only has 15 total, and if you write off half of them as injury-riddled and not his true performance, then you're really talking about 6, 7, 8, games, and that's a little worrisome. So it carries some risk, but that's the idea with Simpson, is that if he is if what he is what he showed in the first 7 games of the year last year against high-level competition now, SEC teams he was playing against, then what you have is a very, very good prospect. So those are the known facts. Doesn't matter what he says. Those are the known facts, Joe. These be facts. So that's what I'm thinking, is that the Jets got those medical reports back as well, and so that's what they're basing this on. And then with Drew Aller, the situation is a little different, but the Penn State team around him was pretty bad last year. They had no wide receivers who could get open. The year before, he had Tyler Warren, but this year, no such tight end that he could even use as a safety blanket. And he had a very conservative coach and offensive coordinator, and the coach got fired. So, with Aller, it's a little differently. You kind of got to squint a little bit to see it, but the kid has arm talent that he might. The thing with Drew Aller, he might have the strongest arm in the whole NFL, stronger than Josh Allen. His problem is half the time he plays with his head up his keister. But you got to figure out why. Is it because the receivers aren't open? Is it because the offensive coordinator's a dunce? Is it because of the very conservative James Franklin as the head coach who got fired? What's going on here? And I think they would look at the tape and say, oh, there's a lot of high-level traits here. All we got to do is straighten this kid's head out and we'll be fine. So that's what's behind that. Michael D'Annunzio. Simpson at 33. Well, you'd love to do that, but it's awfully risky. Swamp Thing. How do you look at... Well, I just explained that, so this comment came in before. But, yeah, that's the thing with Aller, is you got to look at the tape and say, wow, the arm talent is really there, the size you love, and was it really the circumstances around him that prevented him from reaching his potential? And if you do think that, then you see a guy who has incredible potential. Also, why is Simpson at 21 to Pittsburgh is okay, but going to 16 to Jets is not? Franchise bias? Yeah, that's a good question. Everybody has him mocked to the Steelers at 21. We're talking about 5 picks higher. What's the big deal? It probably is somewhat of a franchise bias because everybody says, well, the Jets can't develop any quarterbacks. The Jets don't know what they're doing. Yeah, but we've never had Frank Reich and Billy Moosegravy here before. We never had a general manager who played quarterback in college. Just checking for latest information. No more information coming out. Jets and Giants Finn is here. Good morning, Frankie. I had a weird thought. How does this sound for this year draft? Sonny Styles, Hakeem Mesidor, Lee Hunter, Jacob Rodriguez, Carson Beck, or Aller? Well, it doesn't really speak to any strategic planning. First of all, the number 2 pick is going to be Arvell Reese, so just stop it. And because he fits our defense so well and perfectly. Then after that, it's a crapshoot. You don't know who's going to be there. You don't know who's going to trade around. You don't even know what we've done in free agency. So other than really Reese at 2, there's really nothing else that's going to be certain. So we might end up with some of these guys. I would love Lee Hunter in the second round, for example. I would love Jacob Rodriguez and Lee Hunter in the second round, for example. But that's not... We really got to stop putting players saying we want this player, this player, this player. That's not how it works. You got to put guys in buckets, and you have to have grades on people, and you have to actually know how to do scouting. And then you come up with your grades. You put people in buckets. You also rank your needs. So the needs rank on the roster, on the Jets roster, is not known yet because we don't know how we're going to do in free agency. So this is just not how anything works, Jets and Giants fan. I'm sorry to tell you. But this is FSPN, where we give you the truth, regardless of how much it might hurt you. But this is not how anything is really done. You grade the players, and players at the same position you put in buckets based on their grades. And you say, we're happy with these three, these five, whatever it is. Then you grade your own roster and you see what are the needs on your roster and how do we rank those needs based on based on what we have on the roster. Based on those two things, you then go forward in the draft and you see what you can do. That's how it works. So, checking to see if there's anything else here. Nothing yet. Yeah, I agree with this, Surf City. Waiting to 27 isn't a plan, never was. But a lot of these experts that you see on some of these shows, that's what they tell you the Jets should do. Wait until 27. I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's possible. Uh, Here's an Inner Circle member. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. Seen Dylan Thieneman flying up some big boards. Thoughts on taking him at 16? Well, we had a whole plan, LOL. So in my plan, the quarterback plan that we're talking about, um, then that's gonna mean we probably can't get Thieneman. Now we're also in, from what the reporting is that we're in the safety market and um, we're trying for the top of the market in the safety market. So there's a lot of safeties in this draft as well. So we're probably going to have to, if we do the quarterback plan that I outlined earlier called two bums and a baby, we're going to miss out on Thieneman. Now that's okay. You can still get an AJ Halsey. You can still get perhaps an Emmanuel Neal Warren Neal, whatever his name is, EMW McNeil Warren, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, EMW. So Thieneman is probably going to be gone in the first round. We're going to get Reese and, in my plan, a quarterback at 16. Now, if we don't go quarterback at 16 and we don't do my two bums and a baby plan, then at 16, Thieneman is possible if you wanted to do that. Kind of high for a safety, but to me, hopefully we do this two bums and a baby plan, and hopefully it works out. But then Thieneman's off the board, so we would have to think about Halsey. We would have to think about EMW perhaps, or something like that. Joe Mike says, imagine if Simpson hits Jets arm with, yeah, this is what I'm saying. Yeah, either get three blue chippers or trade back, depending what you want to do. Yeah, we could set up with this plan, you could set up the franchise for the next decade or two. Now, the guy you take at 16 has to hit. We all know that. And that's a risk. It's a risk with any rookie, of course. Dart could still flame out. We don't know. But right now, the Giants think they have their guy. Might not work out. We don't know. Same thing with Tyler Shuck right now. The Saints think they have their guy. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. So that's the idea, is that we use that as a model. We use the bums to get the offense installed, and then 16th pick, Simpson or Aller, whichever one. It is a reach, we understand, but if we have them graded that high, it's not really a reach. And then at some point they come in, just like Jackson Dart, just like Tyler Shuck. At some point when they are ready, they come in and hopefully show you that, yes, they're the franchise quarterback that you've always wanted. And how ironic would it be that we haven't had a franchise quarterback here. We haven't had that vintage here since 1969. And it was a quarterback from the school called the University of Alabama. Alabama. And maybe we got to go to Sweet Home Alabama once again for the solution to the problem. All roads lead back to Alabama. Yeah, well, that's not true, Jojo. His representatives wanted you to believe that he was. Now, he would have gone higher, but the advisory board, that the NCAA provides, gave him a third round grade. They said, we advise you that you're going in the third round. And he was like, shit, that's not good. So that's why he went back to school. But considering that even when the advisory board tells you that, if he came out, he might have snuck into the first round because of, quarterback need. But that's what the advisory board told him, third round. So that's why he went back to school. But this is a 5-star recruit. I mean, this kid was supposed to be the real deal. And the question is, was Penn State really holding him back? And think about it. How many wide receivers does Penn State have? Did they have last year? None. I mean, they had Tyler Warren the year before, and that's part of why he put up some decent stats there because, that's a hell of a safety blanket. But really, they have conservative play calling, conservative head coach, conservative OC, and no real playmakers, in his time there other than Tyler Warren, who was really good. But, for some reason, Penn State just didn't believe in recruiting any wide receivers, which is really stupid, with any kind of speed, especially when you have somebody with the arm talent. I mean, this guy has a rifle, man. Like, if that's your quarterback, how do you not get a couple of speedsters to take the top off a defense, on a college team? Throw some bombs, because that kid can throw bombs, man. Holy smokes. So I like Aller a lot, but I'd prefer to have Simpson. He's more of a sure thing. Aller, you're really hoping that all the negatives were caused by Penn State and its circumstances and such. So, yeah, I was thinking about that, JoJo. Like, if you think about it, now, everybody says Tua is going to be released, but it's Sunday, and he's not released yet. And I told you, if I was Miami, I would convince the owner that we need a year zero. We need a year with basically nobody on the roster. We need to reset the cap and just start drafting people around and not take a quarterback this year. But they might not. I mean, they might do something totally different. But Miami picks 11th. They obviously have Ewers and Tua. But if I were them, I would plan on starting Tua and hope he does pretty good and then trade him at the deadline to some team that has a hurt quarterback but is going for the playoffs. And get some draft capital. Get them, and then some more of the salaries paid out. And maybe you could work out a deal where you pay half or something. And now you don't have a cap issue really with him anymore. You get him off the roster. Right? Maybe you draft Carson Beck in the third round or something. And you just, because you need somebody to back up Ewers once Tua is gone. And do that and just have a year zero. So it's basically almost like a tanking year, but you're basically just resetting because they need a reset there. I think. The roster is pretty barren as it is. They got a couple of pieces, Brooks, Waddle, HN, but it's just a couple of pieces. So trade everybody you can, get as much draft capital as you can, and really start resetting in the 27 draft. They really should be marching for Arch, if you think about it. The Miami March for Arch. They really should. Or if Lenora Sellers straightens himself out this year and figures out how to play quarterback, oh boy. Sellers in Miami, oh boy. So if they're smart, that's what they would do. But I don't know if they're smart. Because what good does it really do to waste a first-round pick on Simpson, for them, would they have no roster? They have nothing. Well, in the long term, they'll be able to, well, so they might. I don't know what their plan is, but they haven't let Tua go yet. How come he hasn't been released? Maybe we'll get the news today. But everybody assumes that Tua is going to get released. I don't think so. That's a huge cap hit, even if you spread it out, and you're getting no value for him. And but if they do that, and maybe that's going to come here soon. But if they do that, then okay, then they might draft Simpson at 11. It's possible. But that's really the only real threat, in my opinion. Arizona, now we got to watch Arizona. That's the other one. But if they sign Willis to a big contract, they're not taking quarterback. And then there really is no other team besides Miami who picks before us that would really take Simpson, which is why I think the Jets are also comfortable with Aller. Because there's certainly no one's going to take Aller before us, right? I mean, that would be Jets would have this great plan, and then somehow both Simpson and Aller would go off the board. But it's really hard to think the Rams, the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders are now picking 14th with that trade. They're going to have Mendoza, so they're not taking another quarterback. That would be crazy. Tampa Bay has Baker. And they should really be looking to extend Baker. He's played really well for them. So they pick 15th. Dallas has Dak. Cincinnati has Burrow. Kansas City has Mahomes. New Orleans has Shuck. Washington has Daniels. Cleveland has their mess, but it's Shador and Deshaun this year, I think. And then try to get their way out of that contract. I mean, what Cleveland really should want is Deshaun Watson to go back to form from when he was with the Texans and when he was good. The Giants have Dart. Tennessee has Ward. So, and then Arizona. So Arizona has the need, obviously, but they're the favorites to sign Willis. If they don't sign Willis, then where's Malik Willis going to go? We should also I would think if Aaron Rodgers is going to come back to the Steelers, doesn't he kind of have to make that announcement today? I mean, he doesn't have to do anything, but kind of. Wouldn't it be nice of him to tell the Steelers that he's coming back so they would know what the hell they're doing? Or maybe he's already told them and it just won't be announced for some reason. But I mean, I would think we have to know about Mr. Rodgers at some point, but maybe not. So if Rodgers comes back to the Steelers, they're out as a destination for Willis or anybody else. So where's Willis going to go? Seems like Arizona's the logical choice. That's where everybody's kind of putting him now. They have money. They have a LaFleur. They have some decent weapons with Marv and Michael Wilson and Trey McBride. So they have some weapons. They need help in the offensive line. They have Trey Benson coming back as a running back. So we'll see how he does coming back from injury. But if they take Willis, then they're out of they're not going to take anybody else in this draft. They just keep probably Brissett as a backup, and then they're set. So there really is only, if that happens, there really is only the Dolphins who's a threat to take him. They might, but what we've seen from them so far is basically a fire sale. They're trying to trade Minka. They're trying to unload whatever they can. If I were them, I would just go with Tua and then trade him at the deadline and just restock and restack next year. And I would take a flyer on a guy like Cade Klubnik or, Carson Beck. Beck played at Miami, so maybe the idea would be, all right, we'll try Ewers. If that's a disaster, then at the end of the year, we'll try Beck or Klubnik or whichever one you pick, Nussmeier. And maybe that works. And okay, but probably not. And then we got to readdress in 27. But it doesn't seem to make much sense for them to really take a rookie now and then just have a terrible team for him to play on. That's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. But they might do it. I mean, we don't know. I did see that TD Finn's Talk was talking about Simpson, and he really liked him, but that's just TD Finn's talk. He's not exactly a scout. And so we'll just have to see what happens. But now we will come back tomorrow night. Uh, and we'll see what kind of deals are getting announced. If tomorrow's totally quiet and nothing gets announced, we'll come on the air at 6 p.m. tomorrow. And because I anticipate some information becoming available tomorrow. However, if it's totally quiet, then maybe we'll come back then on Wednesday when we should see some signings. But if it's hot and heavy tomorrow and there's a lot to discuss, then maybe we'll come back on Tuesday again, and then maybe even Wednesday again. Because if there's that much to talk about, then we got to talk about all these people moving around with your free agents and signings and trades. Another guy I would try to trade for if I were the Jets. So in Fowler's column today, he put out that the Titans are going to be interested in Mitchell Trubisky to back up Cameron Ward. Well, that makes sense because Daboll's their offensive coordinator. Daboll was there with Josh Allen, and Trubisky is like Josh Allen Jr., 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 Jr. He's kind of similar to Josh Allen. So if that's the case and they sign him, wouldn't they be open to trading Will Levis? I would be very open to trading for Will Levis because that's kind of like two bites at the apple. If you have your two bums being actually one bum with Carson Wentz and he's there only as a placeholder, then you could have Will Levis and take your shot with him. Maybe he develops, maybe he's something, maybe he's not something. And then you could have your rookie also. So you basically get two bites at the apple if you trade for somebody like a Will Levis. That could be exciting. That could be exciting. Mark Shissetti's here. Good morning, Shissetti. B. Trav, if you love Simpson, do you wait until 16? Well, we just went through the rankings. Basically, the only threat there is Miami. Assuming the Cardinals sign Willis. Now, if Arizona doesn't sign Willis, who knows what they're going to do? They could start Brissett, but they could take him at 3, but there's no way we can get up to 3 anyway. So if Arizona wants to take Simpson at 3, we're just SOL. There's nothing we could do. We can't get all the way up to 3. But if you wanted to trade with, say, Cincinnati, let's say you want to get ahead of Miami, the real threat. So let's say Arizona signs Willis, so they're out of the running. But, and then Miami eventually releases Tua and takes the cap hit, okay. And so now they're a threat to take Simpson at 11. All right, maybe you would trade up with Cincinnati to 10. Cincinnati needs a lot of help, so they need extra draft picks. Maybe you move up in that case if you love Simpson so much. But there's no other real threats, really. Cleveland is a mild threat, I would say. I would really doubt they're going to add a fourth quarterback to that roster when they need offensive line and wide receiver so desperately. But they are a mild threat. You never know what Andrew Berry's going to fucking do. Crazy man. And he has not had good drafts outside of last year's. Last year's was a banger. So they're a mild threat, but everybody else has a solidified quarterback. So Miami's the one you're looking at. I would think Cincinnati would be open to moving back. They need a lot of help, so the more draft capital you can give them, the better for them. They need a lot of help, especially on defense. So that's the move you would make, 16 to 10. What that would cost, I don't know. We'd have to look at the value chart, but look, you might want to do it, and it's going to depend on all the intel that we get, especially over the next few days. I mean, Tua has not yet been released, and you have to wonder why. Everybody else has announced that they'll be releasing their guys. Whether it's Kyler or Cousins, all those teams went ahead and said, yeah, we're releasing these people. The Dolphins have made no such announcement. So you wonder what's going on there. Maybe they're still going to do it. They have time, but we haven't heard anything. So there you go. So that's what we got going on this Sunday morning. There doesn't seem to be any more news coming through. on what the Jets are doing. Hopefully, if we do the two bums and a baby plan, hopefully that means we can be really aggressive with AVT. Imagine a healthy AVT on this offensive line. That could be a really good line. And really aggressive for linebacker, really aggressive for safety. Hopefully that's the plan. That we need, certain spots where we want to be aggressive and maybe play in the top of the market where normally you can't. Now, the interesting thing about the safety market is playing in the top of the safety market is not like playing in the top of the wide receiver market. Alec Pierce might get 30 freaking million, and Romeo Doubs might get 20. Romeo Doubs has never even cleared 800 yards receiving in a year, I don't think. So, those are expensive places. So if you're going to be aggressive, it kind of makes sense to be aggressive in the safety market where aggressive means, 12. That's super aggressive. 10 is very aggressive. 10, 11 is very aggressive in the safety market. So you may be able to land a top safety for 11 instead of a top wide receiver for 30. So that kind of makes sense. And it's the same thing for linebacker. Maybe a few extra million is what convinces Anzalone to come to us instead of the Bears, for example. Or a few extra million is what keeps AVT on this team. Super talented, injury-prone AVT. And if those three things were to happen, that would be fantastic. But we shall see. Rich Cimini's talking about today is the last full day for teams to re-sign their own free agents before they hit the market tomorrow. It says Jets not expected to do any deals with their most notable free agents before then. I don't know why. Well, I would like to see some minor deals done. I would like to see Kene Nwangu retained. I would like to see Max Mitchell retained. I would like to see Xavier Newman tendered. So these minor deals, I don't know why we can't at least get some minor deals today to fill out this roster. He says, Cimini says, there's interest in retaining guard Elijah Vera Tucker, guard John Simpson, and kicker Nick Folk, but they will allow those players to shop around. Okay. Now, the thing about the guards, though, if we don't get AVT or Simpson, there's plenty of guards on the market, so I'm not really too worried about it. Despite his injury history, AVT is expected to have a market. Yes, there will be. There's also interest in bringing back wide receiver John Mechie. That's what I said the other day without any sourcing. So I thought they might give a multi-year deal to Mechie, and they probably just didn't like the price of the RFA tag. Says here, linebacker Quincy Williams is not expected to be back. He will have suitors. He might go down to Tennessee. He might go to Coach Rutenberg in Cleveland. He might go to Coach Olbrich in Atlanta. Jets' lengthy free agent list includes Tyrod Taylor, Tony Adams, Andre Sisco, Michael Clemens, Isaiah Oliver, Kene Nwangu, Andrew Beck, Max Mitchell, Jay Tufele, Josh Reynolds. Really, of these players here listed, the only ones I really want back is Nwangu, Beck, and Mitchell. Those should be minor deals. We should be able to get them back. And then I'd love to have Mechie on a 2-year deal, which makes more sense and lowers the cap hit. And then you play, you be aggressive for AVT. You be aggressive for safety, you be aggressive for linebacker, and you've got a decent haul, especially if you do the two bums and a baby plan by old Frankie. All right, so last call for questions, comments in the chat. It's 11:09 a.m. on the East Coast, all quiet on the Jets front right now. Last call for questions, comments before we head off. We'll come back tomorrow night, 6 p.m., Monday Night Hang, to see what transpires tomorrow. Should be an exciting day, although we'll have to see what the hell happens. Was hoping we would get some news, some Jet news today, this morning, but apparently none. Interesting thing is that Connor Hughes and Zach Rosenblatt are completely quiet. Same thing with Costello. The only one tweeting is Cimini. So this is strange. I don't know why. Maybe they just have nothing to say, but does seem a little strange. All right, so no more questions or comments in the chat, so we'll just call it a morning, and we'll see everybody back here tomorrow, 6 a.m., 6 p.m., not 6 a.m., 6 p.m. tomorrow, Monday evening. We'll see what's happening with the Jets. Give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already. That really helps. Thumbs up on the video. And feel free to subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. And also, consider joining the Inner Circle. You get to hang out with some really cool people in the Inner Circle. $2 a month, fairly reasonable cost. You get insider exclusive information from old Frankie, things you don't get anywhere else. And so consider clicking that join button down below. And with that said, I will see you.